Welcome to Paperweights, the podcast where two self-proclaimed gym rats and shooting enthusiasts delve into the world of literature with a sprinkle of humor. Although their biceps could crush a walnut, don't let that intimidate you. They also have a nerdy side. Mike and Brandon have a voracious appetite for reading, particularly in the fantasy genre, and they want to share their passion with you. So grab your protein shake and your favorite novel and join us for a humorous and insightful journey into the world of books with Paperweights.
Welcome back to another episode of the...
This is so going to be the intro. This is absolutely the intro that's going to be the clip for this week's. This is 100% it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Paperweights. I am your host, Brandon.
And I am Mike.
Mike, I haven't even taken a sip yet, but I've got some Basil Hayden's that I'm going to be sipping on tonight.
Right on. Well, I actually poured the last of my Blantons, so
cheers.
Cheers, sir.
All right, so this week we're going to be finishing, what's that phrase you like to use?
The thrilling conclusion
of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Do you still have your dust jacket for that copy? And you just take it off?
It's just in the bag. I don't like reading them with the dust jackets on. I'm always worried I want to break it, like mess it up.
Yeah, same here.
So I always take the dust jackets off, and it's in the basement.
Yeah.
So I have the dust jackets for pretty much every book that I bought if I have a hard copy of it, I have the dust jacket for it as well.
Okay. The only one I don't have a dust jacket for is a hardback copy of The Deathly Hallows, and that's just because when I was first reading through it, I saw it at the thrift store, and so I ended up just buying it for $1.
Nice.
It's just like,
it's a good pick. That's a good
book.
That's a good buy for $1,
right? So, anything else? I had my first crawfish boil series listening in. I don't know why. Had my first crawfish boil of the season on Saturday.
How'd that go?
It was great. I tried some new things in the boil this year. I did ravioli, some cheese ravioli. That was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, that's honestly like one of my favorite things about doing a crawfish boil is you can look at something and go, huh, let's throw that in there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
I did that. I did pineapple rings. So I basically just cracked the can, poured the juice out. You could probably pour the juice into the water. It doesn't matter, but then just throw the whole can in.
Nice.
I put green beans in. I wanted to do the same thing with the green bean can.
Right.
But I didn't give good enough instructions to my wife when I was like, hey, I've got these 2 cans and I forgot about them. Go drain them and bring them out. And so she brought them out and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't tell you what to do.
She followed her instructions to the letter.
She did. She did a great job.
Right.
She did exactly what I asked her. And nothing beyond. So
hey, can't really ask for much more than that.
But the green beans came out great, amazing, and the pineapple, it soaked in all the spice. So like
mushrooms are one of my favorite things to put in crawfish boils. I love putting mushrooms in there.
I love mushrooms. I love Brussels sprouts. Here you go, sir. Would you like a D? Would you like the D?
You just dropped it.
I did. I dropped the D.
It's a little small.
It's a little
hard
small.
to hang on to.
Yeah. So, did you do anything fun?
Let's see. So no crawfish boils, unfortunately. I do need to do one. I'm waiting on the prices to drop just a little bit more. So Saturday was the first competition for the Scottish pipe and drum band that I'm in. It's the first time it's the first time I've done a competition with music since high school. So that was a lot of fun. We placed 6th out of 8. So like overall, not a great placing, but that's there were several of us that was our first competition with the band, and we got some really good feedback. So I think for our next competition in June, I think we'll be set up pretty good. And then I drove home from that, picked up my wife and my oldest daughter, and then drove another hour and a half, 2 hours to a hotel for my oldest daughter's volleyball tournament on Sunday.
Nice.
Stayed there all day Sunday and then drove home. So a lot of time sitting all weekend, but it was all for good stuff. So it's not like I was just sitting just to sit.
Nice. Yeah. So the day this episode drops, I will be driving out to Oklahoma and for our father-daughter trip this year. And so
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. We'll be gone for the whole week. And yeah, should be exciting.
That'll be a good time, man.
Yeah.
I love it that y'all do that. Like that is, I love seeing dads that like take purposeful, meaningful time with their kids, especially for their daughters. Like I just think it's amazing. So, cheers to you for being a good dad, sir.
Cheers. Yeah, I remember the first year I did it, Jules was, so she's 10 now. She would have been 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Christy telling somebody that I was doing that, and they were like, wait, Brandon's okay with like going on a trip with just him and Jules, and you're not there to help? She's like, yeah. What's the problem?
It never ceases to amaze me whenever people like the judgment that people have when it comes to dads with their daughters. Like I can do a solid ponytail braid. Don't ask me to do a French braid, but a ponytail braid, I got that locked down. It's like whenever Kelly deploys, if the girls are doing stuff, I'll do their hair. And people are like, oh, who did the girl's hair? I know your wife's gone. I was like, I did. They're like, really? It's like, yeah. I might have giant sausage fingers, but I know how to braid hair, okay?
See, I got lucky. Jules doesn't really like to do anything with her hair, so I can put it in a ponytail
Mm-hmm.
and I can brush her hair.
Well, they have to have their hair like either in a ponytail or like in a bun or something for a lot of their sports. So like for gymnastics, Lizzie has to have her hair at least in a braid or in a bun.
Gotcha.
And Caitlin doesn't do gymnastics anymore, so she can have her hair just in a ponytail for volleyball. But
Awesome.
yeah, people are always like, "Oh my gosh, you know how to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got girls. Why wouldn't I learn how to do that? What's the problem here?"
And you know how to sew.
And I do know how to sew. So
Hey, we both said the same thing.
Love it.
All right.
Shall we
So
dive into the last section of the book?
we shall dive in. That's actually a great way to say it.
It really is, isn't it? It's a good way to get into it.
So the last thing where we left off was Harry was on his way back from the prefect's bathroom where he took a bath with the egg and then was nearly caught on the way back to the dorm room. And so we pick up on chapter 26. Excuse me. I'm tired. I didn't sleep well last night. Chapter 26, the second task. So I didn't go rewatch the movie yet. But a lot of what actually happened in the lake, as far as I remember in the movie, pretty much was what happened in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the biggest differences is in the movie, Neville actually got credit for telling Harry about the gillyweed.
Yep.
Whereas in the book, Dobby overheard. Was it Moody?
Yeah, we find out way later that it was Moody.
Yeah. He overheard Moody say something about the gillyweed, and so he brought it and gave it to Harry, so that Harry could actually complete the second task.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the other difference between the two is in the book, or like Dobby wakes him up and it's like, you have 10 minutes to get your next task. You're gonna be late. And in the movie, like it just kind of happens. Like there's really no sense of urgency from Harry at all. They're just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I think he finds out. Like I think Neville tells him like the morning of, or maybe the night before.
Oh
But
yeah, it was like the morning where he's like on his way, and Neville's like, "Oh, by the way, I read in this book
mhm,
here that gillyweed will allow you to breathe underwater for an hour." I'm like,
right,
how
which
convenient
how
is that?
convenient.
You're going to be underwater for an hour, and here's this thing that lets you breathe underwater for
For the
exactly an hour.
exact amount of time that you needed.
uh, let's see. There's more communication between Harry and Sirius in this chapter. Sirius wants to know the exact date of the next time they're going to Hogsmeade.
Mm-hmm. Gee, I wonder why.
Right. Hagrid decides that he's going to continue the lessons on magical creatures about unicorns because the kids loved it so much.
Well, it took Harry and crew coming down and talking about. He was just absolutely completely sauced. Oh, that was in the
Yeah,
last chapter, wasn't it? Whenever he came, like they go down and talk to him, he's just absolutely like hammered, and Dumbledore's like, "Ah, he's gone temporarily deaf." That was in the last chapter. I
yeah,
digress.
that was. I love that Hagrid was trying to pep Harry up.
Yeah,
He's like, I know it, I can feel it. You're going to win, Harry. This is right before they're yeah, right before he's going out there for the second task.
Mhm.
Um, I need to stop saying in this episode. They Somebody suggests a drought charm, and I
Yeah.
thought that would be interesting. Like dry up the entire lake.
That's a lot. And from what we know about this lake, I mean, there's a giant squid that lives in it, so that would be a pretty big task. That's not even sure Dumbledore has that kind of magic handy to be able to cast a charm and just drain the entire lake in front of Hogwarts.
I mean, he'll drain something.
Yeah, he'll drain something. And then Rita Skeeter publishes a thing saying that Harry and Hermione are a thing, but Hermione's got an eye for Victor Crumb.
Oh, yeah, that was in this chapter, or was that the
Oh,
next?
that's 27. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we hadn't even gotten through the entire second task. Sorry, everybody. Like I said, I am tired, but in a couple of minutes, we'll pep this up a little bit.
Pep it up a little.
Yeah. So Ron suggests these are just funny suggestions. Ron suggests just sticking his head in the water and telling the mer people, "Hey, just give us back what we want."
Right? Yeah, that'll
Uh,
work.
yes, that will definitely work.
Mhm.
I did notice, and I picked up on this where they sent Colin Creevy got sent down. No, Fred and George got sent down,
Mhm.
and they're like, Ron, Hermione, Professor McGonagall want you. I'm like, is this where they take Ron and Hermione? And it was.
It was.
It was the
But
exact moment that they got kidnapped
it
to
was
be
weird
carried to the
that
lake.
I thought it was weird they picked Fred and George. Like everybody knows that those two are not the most dependable people at all. Like, why would you pick those two to deliver some sort of important message? But
But also they would, Rod should think, oh God.
Ron should have been suspicious as all get out. Like the second his brother showed up, like
Yeah,
I don't know.
really?
I
You
don't know
two are
about this.
telling me? You two?
Right.
There's all these books here. Let's see. Oh, in the library, Madam Pince. So Harry's doing some last ditch research here. Some of the names of those books: Mad Cat Magic for Wacky Warlocks, A Guide to Medieval Sorcery, and then this other one was my favorite: Powers You Never Knew You Had and What to Do with Them Now That You've Wised Up. It's like, man, that is a title of a book. You could not put that title on a spine of a book.
Right. Unless the book was like that thick.
Or it would fit on. I saw somebody took all 15 books of the Wheel of Time
Mm-hmm.
and they pulled all the pages out of the binding and then binded it into one
Yeah,
book.
didn't I send that to you?
You might have sent that to me. Somebody
Like,
did.
they made like a custom. Can you imagine trying to read that?
Impossible.
Like you'd have to sit it on the floor and then still sit on like a step ladder to start reading it.
I don't even think you could pick that up without ripping the binding.
Yeah, there's no way. Absolutely no way.
Like if you try to pick it up, it just falls apart. Like the
Yeah.
middle page is just, no matter how much glue you do, you'd have to like stitch. Like some of them have like stitching around the tops of the books.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to group pages all together and have sections and then sew them all together.
Yeah, it was definitely cool to see, but it's like, you just made it completely unusable.
Yeah. Harry stayed up till 2. So he stayed up till 2 in the morning. Now the task wasn't what till 9 or 10,
Yeah, something like that.
something. So he still could have gotten like 6 hours of good sleep, which is not a bad nights of sleep
No.
on a normal day. So he ends up waking up like you said. Dobby wakes him up. He's like, "Hey, you got 10 minutes. Oh, and by the way, here's the gillyweed. Here's how you go." And so now we get into the task, and he's under the water and he's swimming around. Like at first he took the gillyweed and he's out of the water, and then he like starts to choke, and everything's going silent around. He's like, "Oh wait, I have gills. Let me go under the water."
Yeah, and I get it. It's called gillyweed, but like that was a big jump to make as far as like the mental gymnastics. Like, I wonder why I can't breathe. Oh, it's because I have gills. Man, I would have been like, oh my god, what is these things on my neck? I don't. What's going on? And
I would have been freaking out.
Yeah,
And
100%.
nobody told him what happened. He's just like, "Hey, eat this, and you'll be able to breathe underwater."
Just rolled with it.
One thing that does happen in the book that I don't remember happening in the movie, it might have, but like I said, I didn't watch, was that Myrtle showed up in the lake and was like, "You need to try over there. Try searching over there."
Yeah,
And
I don't remember if that was in the because I didn't finish the movie. I kind of got to roughly the start of this section, and I didn't finish it because I didn't want to cloud my judgment.
I get
So
that. That's why I haven't watched any of them.
Yeah, I don't remember. I do remember like he seems like once Myrtle tells him where to go, he kind of gets there pretty easily and then kind of waits. And in the movie, he gets attacked under the water by some little gremlin looking things that are hiding out
The
in the algae.
Grindylows.
Yeah, he gets attacked by those, and
Who gets
like,
somebody gets attacked by him in this one?
Fleur.
Who?
Fleur.
Oh, Fleur.
Yeah. Yeah, she gets attacked by him, and that's what made her late, as we'll find out shortly. That's what made her late to get there.
Yeah.
But like in the movie, he gets attacked by him and still gets there before everybody else. So I guess we know who the better wizard is.
Yeah. I did like there's some nice world building here where the quote of it says Harry sped on, staring around, and soon the dwellings became more numerous. There were gardens of weed around some of them, and he even saw a pet Grindylow tied to a stake outside one door. And like, of course, mer people have villages and houses and things like that, and pets. Of course they do.
Of course.
But you never think of them.
But it's just weird because like it's to me it just makes that lake that much more massive because like you see it in the movie, like when they do little flyovers and stuff, and it doesn't really feel like it's insanely large. Like it honestly, like in the movie, it doesn't even look as big as like Pontchartrain. You know? Or at least to me it doesn't.
It doesn't look as big as like Punch String.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that big.
But then you listen to this and like, how deep would this lake have to be for it to hold a giant squid? The Durmström people show up in a boat just kind of floating up out of it. So it's got to connect to something.
Right.
And now we've got a whole town of mer people. So like as they're describing it in my head, it feels as big as Lake Pontchartrain. But in the movie, they definitely don't depict it as being that big.
Yeah. And so under the water, he goes, Harry gets there before everybody. And then he's trying to save both, like immediately he wants to save both Ron and Hermione.
Yep.
And then what's his name shows up first. Cedric shows up first.
Yep.
And takes Cho, yeah. Wow. I don't know why I couldn't remember the third person. Like I knew it was Ron, Hermione, and Flora's sister, and I couldn't remember the other one. So he comes, takes Cho, then Victor shows up
as a shark. That's pretty gangster.
A poorly transfigured of a shark.
Yeah, that's pretty gangster to think about transporting yourself into a shark or transfiguring yourself into a shark.
Yeah, in the movie they showed him transfigured, but they didn't he wasn't a full shark.
Right.
But they didn't make any point of saying that he messed it up.
Right.
But in the book it's like, oh yeah, he totally botched that transfiguration charm.
Right.
And then Flora doesn't show up.
Right.
And so Ron's like, sorry. Yeah, Harry, I had it right the first time.
Yep.
I do not know what's going on with me tonight.
Such is life, dude.
We will make it through this, though.
We're going to get there, dude. We're going to get there.
This is not as bad as a few months ago.
No, it is not. By a long shot.
So Harry's sitting there going, well, I can't let Flora just die.
Right.
And the mer people are like, that's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, you know what, punk? I know magic. And then they're like, that's when he found out that the mer people don't know magic.
Right.
He's like, wait, magical creatures don't know magic? So he finally frees Floor and Ron, and he's taking both of them up.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's doing that, the gillyweed starts to wear off.
Yep.
And then he finally gets up at the top and he rescues them.
And then Ron immediately gives him crap. Like the second his head breaks the water, he's like, why'd you bring both of us?
Yeah. Didn't you know that we weren't going to die? He's like, right. No, I didn't.
No.
Why would I think that?
And in the movie, he had a knife. He didn't
have a knife.
He had because that's how he was able to cut through it so quick, because he had a knife. And in this one, he's like trying to break it with rocks and all kinds of other stuff. And it's like, why give him a knife? Like, why do something that drastically different between the two? Like, I don't know. I think this one is, from what I can recall, the biggest difference from the first 4 movies versus the books. Like, there's some giant differences that come up later, but like there's a lot of big differences from this book that are missing from the movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The whole house elf subplot is just completely gone.
Yeah.
So outside of the water, Crumb and Hermione are talking, and Crumb notices that there's a beetle in Hermione's hair. And this is before I found out what the significance of the beetle was. I was like, another beetle? Let's see. Hermione is getting jealous because Fleur swooped down and kissed Ron.
Yeah.
She came over and kissed Ron. It's like Ron's just getting, he's guilty by association here.
Uh-huh.
He's like, oh, okay, I'll take that. I was knocked out just like your sister was.
It is kind of funny to watch the tension build between those two as it goes on. Because
Yeah, because
Ron's
Hermione starts
completely
getting jealous.
yeah, and Ron's completely oblivious to all of it. Like he's just like, "What?"
Yeah, he's like, what? You like me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
It
idiot.
takes him like 3 more books to figure that out too. That's what's bad.
Yeah. All right, let's finish this chapter up. We're 25 minutes in, and we've not even finished the first chapter. So,
We're doing great.
yeah. Let's see. Another difference here we had was Bagman was the announcer, which
Mhm.
Bagman's missing from the movie.
Yep.
In the movie, Dumbledore was,
Yep.
which I always thought was odd because he was a judge as well.
Judge. Mhm.
But Bagman's a judge too, isn't he?
Yes.
Bagman and Crouch, and then
Bagman
the
and
three
Crouch.
headmasters.
Yep. See, and
Oh.
that's and another difference is in this one, Crouch is missing, and Percy is the judge in his place.
Yes.
And Percy did. I don't even think Percy shows up in the movie
I don't remember Percy in the
at
movie.
all.
No.
So
Harry decides that the last thing I had here was Harry just decided that every year from now on, or every day of the year, he's going to give Dobby a pair of socks.
he said he's going to buy him enough socks for one, or buy him a pair of socks for every day of the year. That's what he said. Hey, look, Dobby likes socks.
He does like socks.
Dobby
It
likes
was his first
socks.
pair of clothing. I mean,
Look, that's probably why he's like, oh my God, socks. And now we're at Padfoot Returns.
chapter 27, Padfoot returns. So Ron and Hermione kind of tell, or Hermione tells Harry how they got to be put under the water.
Right.
Confirmed my suspicion earlier about, was that when they got taken, and they of course was, because we didn't see them again until they were under the water.
Mhm.
Uh,
Ron's definitely playing up the kidnapped stud. He's like, they took me and gave him a left and a right. And I was fighting them off.
Let's see. Harry goes to meet Sirius at Dervish and Bangs, or he said his letter says, "Meet me at the end of the road."
Yeah.
Past Dervish and Bangs at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and bring as much food as you can.
All the food.
All of it.
We do get a pretty big article from Rita Skeeter about Hermione.
Yes, titled Harry Potter's Secret Heartache. And that's where she claims that Harry and Hermione are lovers.
Yep.
And I really I kind of like this. The more I thought about it, because at first I was annoyed with Rita Skeeter,
Right.
and I had to separate the fact that I'm annoyed with her and not the fact that she exists in the book.
Right.
So I'm not annoyed by the fact that Rowling wrote her character.
Right.
I'm annoyed by her character.
Yeah.
But
which ended up being the whole point.
Yeah. Hey, we didn't change our names. I'm gonna go ahead
No.
and do that now.
Sure. Can we do that now?
There we go. You gonna copy me?
I don't know. Maybe.
So while you're doing that, sorry people that aren't watching this. I think that Rita Skeeter, she exists and embodies the idea of teen gossip.
Yes.
Better than any writing of the characters in the book gossiping about each other.
Yes.
It exists there, and everybody around it. Of course, we don't need to introduce more villains.
Right.
She didn't need to introduce more villains. She didn't want to overplay Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. because they're already jeering and everything enough. And so it's like, all right, well, that's them.
Right.
That's who they are.
Mhm.
If they're the ones gossiping, it's not introducing more of this gossip.
Right.
So it's most of the time, gossip, you hear it and you don't truly know the source of it.
Right.
And so the idea of Rita Skeeter writing these articles and
Mhm.
releasing them, and the kids going, who gave this information? Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Really helps. Like it really hides it for the reader,
Mhm.
as well. Because if it wasn't, then what is the vessel of delivery for this gossip?
Right. And I love
Like, is
how
it
like all of
just,
the articles are from like the Slytherin students.
oh yeah,
Except for like, and there's always like one little nugget because like even in this one, there's like that one little nugget about how Crumb invited her to come to Bulgaria, and Hermione's like, "But how did she know?" Because he just asked me like, "How did who?" Nobody knows that information.
yeah.
So, and then she slid. Then she's
She
like
sees, she does later on. She does see Malfoy
talking to his hand.
into his hand like it was a walkie-talkie,
Yep.
and she's like, "But those don't work."
And that honestly, that we kept talking about electricity. You're like, why don't they know about electricity? And she said that magic interferes with electricity. Maybe that's why Mr. Weasley doesn't really know about electricity. Because when they're in places of high concentration of magic, which he would always be around, maybe that's why he's like he knows about it, but he doesn't really know it.
I can see that. I can understand that.
Like that was honestly like rereading it this time. I was like, maybe that's the answer.
I like that explanation. That makes sense.
That's my one good explanation for this whole book series right there. That's my one.
Let's see. We got Snape coming out with a Veritas serum, threatening to use it on Potter
Mhm.
because he's like, "I know it was you that was stealing my stuff." And he
Well,
brings it all the way back from book two.
no, he talks about the stuff that's missing now.
Yes, but he also talks about stuff that went missing whenever they had to when they made their polyjuice potion.
So I don't think I think this was actually foreshadowing because he says because Harry said you know Harry had taken boomslang skin back in their second year. They had needed it for the polyjuice potion. I think Snape is talking about stuff that's missing currently. I don't think he's talking about second year. I honestly think that's foreshadowing.
Yeah, I mean,
Because remember we already had the because by now Moody has the Marauders map because he asked Harry because Harry said, "Well, I think the map is malfunctioning because it said Barty Crouch was in Professor Snape's office."
yes,
So I think this instance right here is foreshadowing.
I agreed,
Mhm.
but I thought there was something. I just reread that,
Right?
and I thought there was something. Um, oh,
It's because Harry
okay,
said he
because
knew what it
Harry said,
was.
okay, yeah. Harry stared back at Snape, determined not to blink or to look guilty. In truth, he hadn't stolen either of those things from Snape. Hermione had taken the
Mhm.
boomsling skin back in their second year. They had needed it for the polyjuice potion. And
Right?
then Dobby stole the gillyweed.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But yeah, yes. And
That's what I think.
Moody,
I
Moody
think
or
that is
slash
foreshadowing.
Crouch
Yep.
has stolen the boomsling skin
And
because he
if you
needs it
think about
for.
it, that is a brilliant drop, because nobody reading this through without knowing what's coming is going to look at that and go, huh, I wonder why. They're going to look at that and think exactly like you did. Oh, yeah, he's saying that because that stuff went missing in their second year because they had stolen it.
Just, I mean, and the Harry's thoughts there
Right.
point you to that.
Exactly. It's to me, like, that part was brilliant. Absolutely. Like that. I was like,
Never
okay,
mind
that's
never mind the fact that this entire time we see Moody drinking from his hip flask. But then later on, it does explain that the real Moody was always known for carrying around a flask and drinking.
Yep.
From his flask. So like Barty Crouch did an excellent job of picking a person.
It was perfect.
My question though is the magic eye. Like, does it just work for whoever's wearing it?
Has to. Like, it's one of those things. It's probably just a magical object. So whoever's using it, it just works for them.
I could see
That's
that.
my thought.
Well, I until this moment I had forgotten about the tattoos, the Death Eater tattoos, and how they got darker. And so when Karkaroff shows it to Snape, he's like, "Look,
right?
It's pretty much all the way like dark."
Yeah, it's there, and Snape's like, dude, you need to chill.
Yeah, just chill out."
And then they
somebody who was this who gave, I highlighted this but I didn't make a note of who was saying it. I think it was Karkaroff. He said, I know Crouch all right," he said quietly. No, this is Sirius. He was the one who gave the order for me to be sent to Azkaban without a trial.
Yep.
Yeah. That's funny. Sirius's name is not on this entire. Oh, wait, there it is.
Well, because Harry says hello, Sirius, when they see the dog.
I skipped over the paragraph right before that quote that had Sirius's name in it twice. Following notes is hard, man.
It really is. And but I do like this exchange that they have, because Sirius is like, no, the Ministry really needs to be taking Bartha's absence more serious. He was like, I knew her well in school. Like, she loved to gossip. She was sharp as a tack, very gullible, but not dumb.
Right.
And so he's like, if she's been missing for this long, he was like, something is seriously wrong. I always feel weird saying serious when we're talking about Sirius.
Seriously?
Seriously, it just feels weird. I don't know.
It's kind of dark.
And then Hermione's still talking about house elves.
Yes, Hermione is talking about house elves, and everybody's like, "Shut up, Hermione."
Yeah.
We learn a lot about Crouch.
Yes.
From Sirius. So we know that he was poised and he wanted the Minister of Magic job, and he was poised to get that. But with his son dead, his wife,
his son was a Death Eater.
Yeah, his son was associated with that.
Yeah.
And so he gave them to the Dementors in Azkaban.
Yep.
Just to kind of separate himself from it. He managed to not let his son get the death sentence.
Yep.
But just go to Azkaban, straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
Do not pass go.
But at that point, the damage to Crouch's kind of repertoire had been done. So Cornelius Fudge ended up becoming the Minister of Magic, and Crouch was, I like this, shunted sideways
right
into the Department of International Magical Cooperation.
I mean, it's like saying, "Hey, you can't get the Speaker of the House job, but you can be the Secretary of State."
Yes, you could be or Secretary of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah. Well, for us, that's the Secretary of State. Like you go interact with all of the other foreign dignitaries. So you
I,
can't do
I don't
anything
know
in the
much about our government structure.
nerd. That's me. I'm the nerd.
Yeah,
It's like
I'm
you
another
can't do
kind of nerd.
anything in the White House. We're going to send you to interact with all the other foreign officials at their home.
Yep. Oh yeah, they do try to figure out who stole Harry's wand in the top box
Yep.
in order to conjure the Dark Mark. And I think we learned more about that. Or is it here? No, we learned that later on
Yeah.
after the reveal of Moody.
Yep.
But the next chapter we get to is the madness of Crouch. Um, we get important events here, but not much that needs to go into detail. Dobby gets drunk on 6 bottles of butterbeer.
Was that Dobby or was that Winky? I think it was Winky.
Winky. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
Winky. Winky is.
Yeah, Winky's hammered.
Winky is hammered on butterbeer, and they serve that.
Winky is also not in the movie. Did we already say that? I think we already said that.
She's not in the movie. Yeah. Are you hammered on butterbeer right now, sir?
You know, I had butterbeer twice in Six Flags, not in Six Flags, in Universal, because they offer it to you frozen and also on the rocks. So I wanted to try it both ways just to see if I liked one better than the other. Not a fan.
Does
Kids
it
loved
have
it.
alcohol there?
No, well, the butterbeer is not alcoholic at all.
Apparently, in Harry Potter, it is.
It's like 0.002% in Harry Potter, because otherwise, of course, in ink, I don't know what the rules are currently. I know that the rumor is always like if you can see over the bar, you can drink. So I don't know what the actual rules are over there. I've never been.
So they try to get info about Crouch from Winky. They're like, tell us about Crouch. She's like, no, I can't.
I just imagine her going, no, 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 like shaking her finger. You nosy
And then banging her
wizard.
head.
Yeah,
Banging her head on something like Dobby did in the second movie. They send a ham to Sirius.
with like three owls.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not
It was
suspicious
too
at
heavy for
all.
one to carry.
Yeah,
So now we've got the Monty Python reference here, where we got 3 birds carrying 1 ham instead of 2 birds carrying a coconut
right.
by a string.
What is the airspeed of a swallow?
African or European swallow. They see from the distance that Madame Maxine has attempted to talk to Hagrid, but Hagrid did not want to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame you.
No.
Don't blame you, Hagrid.
Don't blame you. You opened your heart up, and she said, "I'm just big boned. I'm not a giant.
I'm just big boned.
I'm not a half giant." He's like, right.
Hermione is starting to receive hate mail. She got an envelope that had yellowish green liquid smelling strongly of petrol, which when it gushed over her hands began to erupt in large yellow boils. So Ron identified it as undiluted bubotuber pus.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fun to say. Bubotuber pus.
But man,
Sounds
like,
disgusting.
but like, I was like, I get it that like she started getting hate mail, but like, are these from like Harry supporters or from Victor Crumb supporters? Like, who's sending this mail?
I don't know.
Or is it both?
I don't know. I mean, it says you are a wicked girl. Harry Potter deserves better. Go back where you came from.
That was the one, yeah. So for the one's definitely a Harry Potter fan. But like, where are all these people that are? Why aren't they like Like, how come Harry isn't talking about getting fan mail all the time? If all these people are all about him leading up to this moment, why haven't we heard about him getting like bags of fan mail since he got to Hogwarts?
It didn't serve the story.
It's kind of like the whole house. Why the house elves aren't in Hogwarts of history? It didn't. It didn't
It
fit
didn't
until just
serve the
now,
story. She didn't think of them yet.
right?
They learned about the Nifflers, who are treasure seekers. That was pretty cool.
Those are cool. Those are cool little critters. I like those little
Yeah.
critters.
Oh, we do find out why Hagrid has those blast-ended scroots, though. In the third task.
Yeah, but I don't think that's why he started with them, though. I think he started with them out of just straight up, hey, you know what would be cool? We took this and bred it with this and see what happened. Because
Probably.
that's a Hagrid move. Total. That's a
Mm.
total Hagrid move.
Yeah.
And so we also get a little pushback from Ron when we find out about Leprechaun Gold.
I was just about to say that.
Beat you to it, sir.
I literally said leprechaun, and you were like, "Oh, we also get pushback from Ron."
My bad. I'm sorry. Do you want to roll forward with that, or
No, I think we need to fight, like verbally fight on this episode.
no? I said it first. I didn't
You
even hear
take it, sir. It's yours.
Fine, I will. So we get a little pushback from Ron because we find out Hagrid says, don't even try to steal it. It's leprechaun gold, no big deal. And Ron's like, wait, what? And he like accusing Harry. He's like, hey, well, why didn't you even mention that you just lost, that all those galleons that I gave you just disappeared? And he's like, well, I didn't notice. And Ron's like, great. It must be nice to be so rich you don't notice just all those galleons missing. And I do like what Harry points out there. He's like, well, we were kind of busy, like running for our lives. like we were running for our lives. My wand was missing. There were Death Eaters all over the place. My bad for not thinking about the money you gave me.
Ron wasn't scared though. He was just like, "What's so bad about a skull floating in the sky?"
I know, right? Ron's like, what's the big deal?
Why is everybody screaming? Like, there's just a big skull with a snake in the sky, and then muggles are being thrown into the air.
That would be
Magic users are
terrifying.
being
Like if I
attacked.
saw that, I would be terrified. I'd be like, what in the crap is going on?
Especially as a kid.
Yeah.
Hermione's bitching about why Ron and Harry haven't read Hogwarts history. And Ron's
Oh
like,
God,
"Well,
what did she call it? She was like heavily modified selective. I wish I had that written down. Like
I have it highlighted somewhere, but
I think it was like in the first section when she calls it like, or as it should be more aptly called, like Hogwarts very selective, heavily modified. I don't remember what but it was awesome. But she's still talking about, like, Harry or Hagrid tells her, hey, don't worry about it. I still get hate mail every once in a while about the whole half giant thing. It's going to be fine. And her whole thing is she's like, I'm still trying to figure out how she knew that how Rita knew that information, because there was nobody around whenever he said it.
mhm.
Did you find it?
No.
Oh,
I was just looking on it. A highly biased and selective history of Hogwarts, which glasses over the nastier aspects of the school.
that's a great title. Again, one of those, the binding of the book would have to be like 4 inches thick for it to all fit. But
Yeah, I love the names of these like departments and books that
yeah.
Rowling has in this thing. What were you saying while I was looking that up?
So
Apparently, I can't do two things at once.
I can't either most of the time. So Harry said, whenever Hermione's like, I still don't understand how she even understood or how Rita found out about Victor asking me to come to Bulgaria because he just asked me as we were coming out of the water, and Harry said, "Well, maybe you were bugged." And she's like, "What?" And I think that's when the wheels first started turning for Hermione. And
Yeah.
he explains about the hidden microphones like being bugged, like in Spy World. And Hermione's like, "No, you moron! For the 12th time, that stuff doesn't work here because of all the magical interference."
And
So
yeah, and then later on when she sees Malfoy speaking to his hand
yep,
like a walkie-talkie, she's like, "Oh," because they do see a bug later on, another beetle later on.
yep. We get a letter from Percy.
They do get a. Oh, I was gonna say, Hermione was like, oh no, sorry. Ron said, Why would we read Hogwarts history? You know it by heart. We could just ask you."
I mean, that's fair.
It is.
That's a fair question.
I don't know what she asks more, or mentions more, Hogwarts history, or the fact that you can't apparate into Hogwarts.
I mean, she does mention it a lot, but to be fair, both Ron and Hermione, or Ron and Harry both are like, "Well, what if they just disappeared?" And she's like, "You two are idiots. How many times are we going to go over this? Like, this is simple stuff. Why can't you get this through your head?" And
The
obviously, Mrs. Weasley reads Rita Skeeter. But she sends
Oh yeah.
Ron and Harry like boatloads of chocolate and sends Hermione a little bitty Easter egg. So obviously she's reading the articles.
Yeah, I did like the both Harry's and Ron's were the size of dragon eggs and full of homemade toffee.
Mm-hmm.
Hermione's, however, was smaller than a chicken egg. At which point, uh, Hermione was like, "Your mom doesn't read Witch Weekly by any chance, does she, Ron?"
You're
It's
like,
like, "Yeah,
yeah.
she gets it for the recipes."
Uh,
Then Percy also they get a letter from Percy. They're telling them that he hasn't seen Mr. Crouch. He's taking a break.
mhm.
Um, he gets instructions regularly with owls. So nobody knows.
Nobody
I
knows.
also didn't realize from the movie that they built the maze on the Quidditch pitch.
Yeah, I did remember that, and that one is the same because that's the whole reason why they canceled Quidditch for the year.
Got because they had to grow
Mm-hmm.
the maze,
But
but
it's
nobody was
magic.
looking.
But it's magic. Like, why couldn't they just be like maze and it just grow?
But also the whole year, nobody was like, "Hey, what's that growing?"
Right. Like nobody walked by the Quidditch pitch and was like, "Hey, what's all that?"
Crumb asks Harry if he is dating Hermione.
Mm-hmm.
They never had that conversation in the movie.
Never.
We do find out how many students that Durmstrang brought,
Yep.
which was 12,
Mm-hmm.
and it's suggested that when Beauxbatons heard about that, they also brought 12.
Yeah.
And the ones that weren't selected, I wonder if they stuck around. But then the crowds of people watching the Triwizard Tournament, is it disproportionately Hogwarts students?
Kind of feels like it. Definitely felt that way in the movie.
The home team?
Home
You got the
team.
home
You got home field
crowd,
advantage, man.
right? Then Mr. Crouch stumbles upon Victor and or Crumb and Harry,
Mhm.
and he looks terrible, dazed, like he doesn't know what he's speaking to. It's like he's speaking to Percy.
Yeah, it's like almost like he's not exactly sure who he's talking to.
Right. Well, he's speaking as if somebody's there that's not,
Right.
and not even to Crumb or Harry.
Right.
Like he's staring at a tree, talking to the tree as if it were a person.
Yeah.
And then he's having
He
these
keeps saying, keeps calling the tree
moments.
Weatherby.
Yeah, so he thinks he's talking to Percy.
Yep.
But then he's like fighting through this whatever it is and having these moments of I need to speak with Dumbledore.
Right.
And so Harry's like, "Oh my god. Okay, Crumb, you stay here with him. I am going to go find Dumbledore because I know where his office is and I can get there faster."
See, and I know why it was written like this. I get it. Why not bring him with you? Why go get somebody and then come back? Like, why not just bring them with you?
They're 14-year-old kids. Well, Harry is.
And well, Crumb's 16 or 7. No, Crumb's 17 at least.
Crumb is 18.
Well, I said at least.
He's at least 14 too.
At least 14. So that part made no sense. I'm like, okay, you're going to go get Dumbledore and then bring him back. So you're going to take twice as long to do something that's super important, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I know why they wrote it that way, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah. It's he's talking about Dumbledore, Harry Potter, the Dark Lord, stronger. Harry Potter, it's all my fault. Birth of Dad, all my fault. My son, my fault. That's when he sees Harry as Harry is about to run away. He grabs him and he's like, and it reminds me of it was almost like Professor Trelawney's trance, where she was like, Professor Trelawney pretty much pulled a Lady Galadriel, and instead of a Dark Lord, you will have a Dark Queen.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's what I think about when I read that section where Trelawney goes into that true trance about the Dark Lord returning. So we move on to chapter 29, The Dream. And so here is where I actually realized that chapter 1 was also Harry's dream. And I didn't realize it at first when we got to chapter 2 when he woke up.
Right.
But because I was like, I just thought, okay, these events happened, and then because that happened, he woke up from his sleep and his scar hurt. It wasn't, and nothing in the book he didn't go, hey, I had this crazy dream either.
Right.
But it seems like that was his dream, and either he just didn't recall it, and we just get that as the reader. But it makes sense after this chapter that would be a dream, because it kind of continued.
Yeah.
And in the end of chapter 1, Voldemort definitely was like, somebody else is there.
Yeah.
So we got some like Inception style stuff going on.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Hermione tells them again, it's like, how many times have I told you you can't disoperate on the Hogwarts grounds?
Right. She's like, when is it going to sink
like
through your
times.
head?
Yeah.
We should have gone back and counted how many times she said that. Or I wonder if Google knows. What if that's something that somebody else has Googled? Google might know.
And so in this chapter, the kids argue about what happened to Crouch, then run into Fred and George at the Owlery sending a blackmail letter. So they're going up to the Owlery, and then they hear two people talking, which end up being Fred and George, who don't know they were there. And they were talking about, yeah, we got to send it, and maybe we could blackmail them. This can't be right. And we find out later that they were trying to recoup their money from Crouch. We do find this little description here was like, oh, okay, it's definitely time for more polyjuice potion for Mad Eye Moody, because it says the eyelid of his normal eye was drooping, giving his
Right.
face an even more lopsided appearance than normal. And then there's like, Professor Moody? And he's like, oh, yeah. And takes a swig.
Yeah. I can't find the information on Google. So a bunch of people being smart alecks about it, but no actual information. And apparently the Accio charms works surprisingly well for teachers as also, because that's how Moody was able to get the map from his office, as he summoned it.
Say that again.
So we catch up with Moody because he
Mhm.
takes a swig of his polyjuice potion, and they're talking to him about, like, how did you look for Crouch? Like, how did all that work? And he's like, yeah, I summoned the Marauders map. He's like, I took a page out of your book and summoned it just from the office, so I didn't have to go back and get it. And then Ron's like, so you can disappropriate, and then disapparate, whatever. You can't. So he did disapparate, and Hermione again, you can't do that, dummy. And now this is the second time that Moody has told somebody they would make a good Auror.
Yes.
So.
I highlighted this where Sirius's letter told him, it's keep after yourself. Don't see. I'm waiting for your letter, giving me your word you won't stray out of bounds again. And Harry says, "Who's he to lecture me about being out of bounds?" said Harry in mild indignation as he folded up Sirius's letter and put it inside his robes. After all the stuff he did at school,
I mean, he's not wrong.
As Theo Vaughn says to Harry, it makes him want to kick a fat kid at Kmart.
Not wrong.
Like when Sirius tells him that, it makes him want to kick a fat kid at Kmart. Makes me want to kick a fat kid at Kmart.
He's not wrong. But at the same time, it's like us. Like, like now, like you look back and you tell your kid, dude, don't do that. And your kid's like, well, didn't you do it? It's like, well, yeah, but I know why it's a bad idea. So I'm telling you not to do it.
Yeah. I don't want you to have to go through what I did and learn it. I want you to take my word for it.
Yeah.
So that you can learn other things on your own.
Yeah. I'm gonna lay out exactly why it's a bad idea. That way you don't have to find out for yourself why it's a bad idea.
Here's all the things I found out that were bad ideas. And take my word for it, so you don't have to, so that you can move on and make your own mistakes.
Yep.
That I didn't make. And then your kids will be even better, because they'll be like, well, my parents did this and that wasn't a good idea. And then I did this and that wasn't a good idea. And now your kids are like, I know all the good ideas now.
Right. Because they've gotten rid of all the bad ones.
Yeah. So they're practicing now spells for Moody tells, I think it was Moody tells Harry that he should brush up on certain spells, probably like a disarming spell and stunning spells and things, because there's probably going to be, he kind of gives suggestions of things that are going to be in the maze.
Yeah. Well, Sirius says, practicing some stunning and disarming charms and a few hexes would be a good idea. Tells him that in his letter.
Okay, yeah. I knew somebody did.
Somebody told him that.
Definitely Sirius. Let's keep this thing rolling. Keep your hands up.
Rolling.
Keep rolling. Keep rolling. We're keeping that in, right?
100%.
Okay.
That's going to be how we know where to come back in at.
All right, so Harry's practicing the stunning charm. Is going back and forth between Ron and Hermione. Hermione always lands on the pillow. Ron isn't landing on the pillow, and he's like, this sucks.
That's probably what I would say too if I kept landing on the concrete.
Can't we go find Mr. Filch's cat? Mrs. Norris? Can we kidnap her? And you do it on the cat?
I mean, none of them like the cat. The cat's kind of a tattletale. The cat's a snitch, so we know what happens to snitches. So
Yeah. Cornelius Fudge is suggesting that Madame Maxine is the danger as because she's a half giant.
oh, the so before we get to that though, we have Harry has an episode in Trelawney's room. Like he like falls on the ground, has this crazy dream about Voldemort and Wormtail, and
Which is like a continuation of chapter 1.
basically it's like chapter 1 skip all the way to 29. So no, but yeah, the same kind of thing. Like he has this vision of Wormtail and Nagini and Voldemort, and like Trelawney is like, you've had a premonition. We need to discuss this. He's like, I need to go get a headache cure. Is what I need. I just need to get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. And then we get we skip a little bit and we get to chapter 30.
Well, he
No,
goes
so he goes to Dumbledore. He doesn't go to
he
the
goes to
hospital. He goes
Dumbledore's
Dumbledore.
office, and he's like, he knew the old password, which was lemon drop.
Right.
It didn't work, and then he's like, oh, he likes candy. So he goes through this whole
Starts
list
pulling through it.
and he's like, at first he gets through a couple and it's like party bots every flavor beans. Oh wait, no, he doesn't like that. And then cockroach cluster.
Doesn't he
He's
kick
like
it?
chokingly, and the gargoyles jumped aside.
Yeah, he kicks the gargoyle and like yells cockroach cluster. And he's like, wait, that worked?
And so he goes, yeah, he goes into there where Fudge is in there talking with Dumbledore, and Moody is in there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Moody, Fudge, and Dumbledore are all in the office
Yes.
discussing it. Fudge, they're discussing Barty Crouch's disappearance.
Yep.
And Fudge is suggesting that Madame Maxine has something to do with it because she's a half giant.
Mhm.
Half giants are dangerous. To which Dumbledore says, I no more suspect Madame Maxine than I do Hagrid.
And which Fudge has something to say about that too.
Mm-hmm.
We're really starting to see that Fudge doesn't like people that aren't regular humans.
Right.
Like regular wizarding humans.
And so now we move on to chapter 30, the pensieve. We get a lot of information here.
Yep.
We are, what time are we? We're at an hour and 9 minutes. So
really we just get a lot of backstory in this chapter about the whole Death Eater. Like Ludo Bagman was brought in for questioning. This is where we see Barty Crouch with his kid. And we see Kakarot brought in and like naming names.
Yeah, he named names.
Yep.
Bagman was accused.
Yep.
Which he was acquitted.
Yep.
Then Crouch's son was being sentenced to Azkaban.
Mm-hmm.
So those are like the backstories we get.
Yep.
Which was interestingly done in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, like it really felt like they condensed that a lot because like they brought in Kakarot and he named Snape like he does in the book. They never again Bagman completely absent, but in the movie, Kakarot is the one that says Barty Crouch Jr. was the Death Eater, and then Barty Crouch, like the son, like jumps up and tries to run away, and it's like I don't know. I guess because we're missing characters from the movie or from the book that they kind of had to condense it.
Yeah, I can see that.
It was just weird.
Yeah. So we do see now another instance of Dumbledore conveniently leaving things for Harry to discover. So I really get the feeling that Dumbledore knows a lot more than he lets on,
Yeah.
but that he can't act on it himself. So he needs Harry
Right.
to accidentally
Mm-hmm.
discover information and act on it on behalf of Dumbledore.
Right.
Almost like, again, almost an Inception style thing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Harry, that sounds like a great idea. You
Right.
should, yeah, that's a great job, boy, for coming up with that thought.
It's almost like he
Go
can
ahead and do that.
we haven't, like, they never say it, but it's almost like he can actually see the future, but he can't do anything about it himself. So he just kind of has to guide the way for it.
I am interested. So, um, oh, I'll save that for later.
Okay.
But a friend of mine, she wants to discuss book 7, and one of the things she mentioned was, and I'm going to discuss how Dumbledore is a terrible person. So I'm actually quite interested in her take on Dumbledore.
I mean, yeah, I can see that. Like, I could kind of see where she was coming from with that.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what happens in chapter 30. Not really much to discuss in great detail. It's pretty straightforward
Yeah,
storytelling.
just a bunch of backstory.
Yeah. So in the third task, Rita wrote another article talking about Harry collapsing in divination class. And so now they're trying to figure out her source. And then Harry gets to study hexes while the others take exams.
Right. Seems fair.
Like, what are you going to do while we take exams? Oh, we'll go over here and practice my hexes. And so then they move on to the third task. They enter the maze, and we get. Did I miss anything before then that you wanted to speak of?
I don't think I was looking to see if maybe that this was where they see him talking into their hand about the whole, but I don't think so. No, we get that letter. We get another. Oh, we just get the whole thing about Harry Potter. Like, maybe he's more demented than delusional than people give him credit for. That's really about it.
Yeah. So because Cedric and Harry are tied in first place for most points, they get a head start at the same time into the maze. Then they hear a firework go off, which means that Crumb has now entered.
Right.
And a little bit later, they hear another one, which means Floor has now entered.
Oh, the only thing we get is everybody, all the champions have the ability. Their family gets to come see them. And as Harry's giving him a tour, Mrs. Weasley sees Hermione. She's like, "Oh, hello, Hermione." And Hermione's like, "Oh man." And Harry's like, "You really didn't believe that, did you?" And she's like, "Oh no, no, of course not. Hermione, dear, how are you?" Like, instantly changes her whole attitude.
Instantly. Like,
Instantly.
once she got called out on it, she's like, "Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah.
I'm a dumbass."
Yeah, that's the only thing that. And again, I don't think that's in the book or in the movie at all.
And she's there because her and Percy, or was it Bill? Her and Bill showed up in place of Harry's parents.
Yeah, well, his aunt and uncle, yeah. Well, I think it was all of them.
No, no, it was Mrs. Weasley and Bill.
Yep, that's it. You're right, Mrs. Weasley and Bill.
Yep, just the two of them.
Us.
Casting spells in the sky, just the two of them.
You
Weasley and
and
Bill.
all right, so we're in there. We're in the maze. Harry's like breezing through, no problem,
Not having any obstacles.
none whatsoever. Just kind of strolling the park.
And he does see he saves Cedric from a gigantic blast-ended screw.
Well, Cedric was running away from it, and then Harry runs into it.
Fair enough.
Really,
But
the only thing
still.
that he saves Cedric from is Victor Crumb, and then a spider.
Okay, true. Yeah. He hears Victor Crumb cast Crucio,
Yep.
which point he stupefies him.
Yeah, he stuns him.
Yeah. Let's see. He did the impedimenta on the scroot on the underside,
Yep.
and that kept him the 4 points. Oh, the 4 point spell was like the
This is a
the compass. Gotcha. And then so he saves Cedric from Crumb. But right before that, they heard Floor scream.
Yep.
So Crumb did something to Floor Delcor.
Right.
It was never mentioned. Was it mentioned later that somebody bewitched Crumb, or no?
Yeah, it was mentioned later.
Okay, because I know definitely in the movie Harry was like Crumb was bewitched.
Yeah, because he could see it in his eyes. His eyes were like all like foggy and glazed over.
He had cataracts.
He did. He had cataracts.
He couldn't tell who he was attacking.
Right.
He thought he was attacking a blast-ended screw.
Something. But he didn't
Hey, I
attack
told you I
Harry.
would stop yawning,
This is true.
and I did. I'm a man of my word.
Right.
I control my body.
That's right.
All right, back to here. So after he saves Cedric from Crumb, they're going, and then there's a spider.
Well, we gotta get to the Sphinx first.
Oh, yeah, the Sphinx. I didn't even highlight that. The Sphinx was fun.
The Sphinx was fun.
First, I was actually trying to think of it because, and I had to remember. Okay, she's English,
Right.
so there might be different words or something for certain
Mhm.
situations. So, yeah, I didn't think of spy,
Yeah.
but obviously the middle and the end of end, that's D.
Right.
And then the sound often heard during the search for a hard to find object, I kept coming up with ugh. So I was like, duh. I was like, duh. What? Duh.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It kind of stumped me too. And then I read it. I was like, I can kind of see that.
So when he comes up with that, it's like,
Mhm.
oh yeah. And then the Sphinx, she just seems so defeated. She's like,
Oh.
oh, well, that wasn't as fun.
Right.
But we've come in our D&D campaigns, we've come across some Sphinxes, and usually if you don't answer it correctly, like I remember one time, we lost points of intelligence like from
Really.
our character permanently, which like can affect your character.
Mhm.
Like definitely can affect your character, and if any of your stats goes to zero, like your character's dead.
Oh.
Yeah, but there's not a whole lot that reduces your stats
Mhm.
permanently, so that's kind of a good thing.
That is good.
What's next?
The spider.
Sphinx, spider.
The Sphinx moves out the way. Goes tearing off down the maze to the middle, and all of a sudden he sees Cedric running away from a giant spider.
And of course, shooting the unprotected underbelly of the spider with a spell will affect it.
Well, it took both of them, but they both did a spell And then they sit there and argue, like they knock the spider out together. Then they argue about who gets to hold the cup, and Harry's like, "Let's just take it together."
Do you
Like,
think so? Do you think that she kind of pulled from Tolkien and Shelob for the spider thing here?
I don't know. I feel like this was a throwback to Aragog.
You really do?
Hmm
I kind of see.
I feel like this was pulling from a character we've already like maybe like it probably wasn't actually Aragog. It was probably one of his children. But I feel like Hagrid probably went into the forest, was like, "Hey, Aragog, got a gig for one of your many children if you're interested."
True, but just the way they defeated it is reminiscent of the hobbits
Hmm
fighting Shelob
Yeah, that is true.
and then her children,
Yeah.
which is interesting. So, like, I forget all the details, but the airplane facts with Max guy, he was talking about the light of Elendil
hmm
that was that they that and this is spoilers for Lord of the Rings, but
Dude,
uh,
if it's spoilers for Lord of the Rings, they are well, like they deserve it because it's been out.
so Sam used the light of Elendil. I think it was called the light of Elendil to defeat Shelob, but
Hmm
Shelob was born from the influence of the other two Silmarils, and the light of Elendil is like the third Silmaril.
Right.
It was, he was going on about this. Man, I love that guy. I want to have him on the podcast. And I remember when I brought that up to you, you're like, well, I don't really care much about airplanes. I'm like, no, no, no. Like, go. Here's his account.
Yeah, I still don't see his stuff very much because I don't follow him. So
He's a fun guy. He definitely knows his Tolkien
yeah,
and
he
his Lord of
definitely
the
does that.
Rings. And his story is so sad. So like he started this account a little over a year ago,
Hmm
and it's gotten a crazy following. And like just like a lot of things that go viral, there's no
Right.
rhyme or reason to why.
Right.
But he started the account and recorded a lot of those videos on his breaks at work
hmm
because he was dealing with grief from like his wife died.
Right.
And so like he's depressed and dealing with grief, and he recorded these tidbits while he was on his break at
hmm
lunch at work, and then it just turned into a thing.
Right.
It's interesting because you'll learn something about airplanes,
hmm
and then you'll learn way more about Lord of the Rings than any person should ever like know. And he goes on with great detail, and it doesn't
Right.
seem like he has something that he's referring to in the background as he's talking
Right.
about it.
He's just kind of going.
And if he's stitching this together, he's doing a great job of finding the seams.
Right.
But it looks like it's one take on most things.
Yeah, most of the
It
stuff
ties it back in the end.
some of the stuff I've seen from him, it definitely is one take. Like he's just like, and go. So
Yeah. But anyway, I love that guy. And if y'all listening, or if he for some reason listens to this, great
well,
work, Max.
can always tag him.
Yeah. Airplane facts with Max. We don't get paid by him. I've never had a conversation with the guy.
Me either.
But be careful, he did rickroll me. Or
Oh,
everybody. He did get a rickroll in there. And it was great.
dangerous. Those are dangerous. So Harry convinces Cedric that they're both going to grab the Triwizard Cup. They're going to it's going to be a Hogwarts champion, doesn't matter which house. They're both going to claim it, and they grab it, and it's a port key.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun dun dun.
Well, I want to know what was going to happen if it didn't like. I wonder if it was still going to be a port key, but just transport them outside of the maze,
I guess we'll never know.
or if it was going to shoot up fireworks and all
Well,
of a sudden, like the maze just goes like, zoom, and they're just in the middle of the
that's
Quidditch
kind of the
field.
way it was in the movie, because when they come back, there's no more maze, or they're on the outside of it. It's one or the other. So I kind of think maybe they grab it, and it was supposed to transport them to the front of the maze. Like, that makes sense,
Yeah,
because that's kind of what happens the second time. Is they're like, either they come back and the maze is gone, or they're at the very front of the maze, because it's not really clear which is which.
yeah.
I'm gonna go with they're at the front of the maze. So I think that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Because otherwise, somebody could have grabbed the Triwizard Tournament Cup, tried to carry it out, and then get ambushed by another champion and be like, "That's mine. Now you got to fight me for it."
Sure.
So
So then we move on to Flesh, Blood, and Bone. Again, I don't think there's much. I don't think there's much to discuss here. We get right off the bat, Wormtail kills Cedric.
kills immediately. Just boom.
Then he takes Riddle's dad's bone, and
Mhm.
as he's saying what he says with
Right.
this spell that Voldemort came up with, or no, this isn't a spell that Voldemort came up with. Voldemort came up with other spells, he was saying.
Yeah.
And then this combination brought him back to life,
Yeah.
a body, a full body.
Yeah. This was, for as simple as this spell is. He's like, it's old magic, and I had forgotten about it. I'm like, it's literally 3 ingredients, dude. 3.
Yeah.
How?
Your dad's bone,
Yeah.
Wormtail's hand,
Hand.
and then blood from Harry.
Yeah.
And it resurrects Voldemort.
This seems like overly simplistic for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And Lord Voldemort's back.
And he's back. Chapter 33, The Death Eaters. We get a lot of stuff here. This was a pretty interesting chapter here. So he grabs Wormtail's arm and pokes into the Death Eater, the
brand.
mark, and it shoots up into the sky, and all of a sudden all the Death Eaters apparate in.
Yep.
And so
one thing that wasn't clear to me, like in the movie when they show up, they're all wearing masks. But in the book, it doesn't really say that. It just says they're there. So, and I mean, in the movie, it didn't really matter because Voldemort knew who they all were, and he's like ripping their mask off. But if they weren't supposed to know who each other was, like, did they just show up in the book? Do they show up without their mask, or do they just show up with mask? It doesn't really say.
it didn't say.
So
Let's see. There was highlighted something, and I don't know why, which is typically the case. You see that house upon the hillside, Potter? My father lived there. My mother, a witch who lived here in this village, fell in love with him, but he abandoned her when she told him what she was. He didn't like magic, my father. So this is the story of his parents.
Yep. And kind of why he was brought up in an orphanage.
Right. And this kind of answers my question back. I think it was last book. Or
yeah. Why was he in an orphanage?
Yeah. So his dad left her, returned to his muggle, and he left her and returned to his muggle parents before he was born. She died giving birth to him, leaving him to be raised in a muggle orphanage. And so then he vowed to find him. I revenged myself upon him, that fool who gave me his name, Tom Riddle. So he's named after his dad, who didn't love him. Or his mom named him after.
Yeah, that seems weird.
Hold on. Is that right?
Yeah.
He says, I revenged myself upon him, that fool who gave me his name, Tom Riddle. Like, he didn't just say, he gave him his name,
Right.
Riddle.
I wonder if it's
Tom
one of those things that's like, you're going to name the child after me. Like, you didn't even know if it was going to be boy or girl. Like,
He
you just,
left.
yeah,
His mom named him. His his mom named him
right.
after the man who left her pregnant.
She was heartbroken and confused, sir.
And so this whole chapter, again, it's Voldemort talking
Yeah. The
the
whole
entire
chapter.
time, explaining everything that happened
And
to everybody.
it's the typical villain montage.
It is like just a monologue of,
Yeah.
and like Harry's just sitting there with a broken foot tied
Yeah.
to the damn statue of the angel, right?
Right.
Which doesn't make sense because then Voldemort unties him and says, "We're gonna have a fair fight." Like,
Right.
if you were gonna have a fair fight, sir, you should have mended his leg.
Yeah.
um, I highlighted where he talked about the six missing Death Eaters. 3 were dead in his service before, and then 1 is too cowardly to return.
Mhm.
I took that as being Karkaroff.
Yep.
1 who I believed has left me forever. That's Snape,
That'd be Snape.
and so he will be killed, of course. And then 1 who remains my most faithful servant, and who has already re-entered my service, which is Barty
Gotta be-
Crouch
yep.
Jr. Um, here we go. This is how Bertha Jorkins had come to be kidnapped, because Wormtail was like fleeing
Mm-hmm.
as a rat, but it was like, you know what, I'm hungry. Pops into an inn,
Yep.
which Bertha Jorkins is there, and she recognizes him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Oh crap! Well, let me take her to Voldemort. He'll be happy."
Right.
At which point, Voldemort used the memory charm
Mm-hmm.
and the Crucio. Was it the Crucio, the Veritas?
Whatever it was,
Some combination of stuff.
he basically broke through the memory charm that was placed on her to figure out that Barty Crouch Jr. was still in the game, and then he killed
And
her.
that the Triwizard Cup was going to be at Hogwarts.
Yep.
And so he's like, "Oh, I know exactly who I can use to do this."
But it was just the typical like villain monologue. Like, he lays out the entire history, like this whole plan of this entire book is laid out in this chapter. That's the entire chapter.
Except for the big reveal, which we'll get to in a few chapters.
Yep.
So we'll move into, at the end of the monologue, I already said Voldemort allows Harry to duel him.
Yep.
How very hubris of Voldemort that was.
What a guy.
Yeah. Great guy. I want you to have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, "Bow to me, bow to death." And like making him do all sorts of stuff. And we get to chapter 34, Priori Incantatem, which I read the majority of this out loud with narration and voices to Jules.
Right.
And it was exciting. And so got to the point where it actually the Priori Incantatem started.
Yep.
And the globe was going and the vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, though he heard it only once before in his life, a Phoenix song.
Yeah.
So I stopped here because Jules has watched the first movie.
Uh-huh.
And Christy watched the first movie too. Christy was there when I was like, "All right, so what do you think's happening?" And Jules is like, "Well, their wands are like affecting each other."
Right.
Like, "Do you know why?" She couldn't remember, so I was like, Ollivander explains it in the first book, that the wand that Harry got has a phoenix tail feather in it
Right.
that belonged to the same phoenix that um it sorry, that phoenix had another tail feather that
Yep.
fell off, and it was put into Voldemort's wand.
Mhm.
So they're brother wands.
Yep.
And so that's why this effect is happening. And so I was reading that out to Jules, and it was pretty fun. Um, very descriptive. I love the description in that chapter
Yeah.
of that event. We don't have to discuss details of it. I know at the end it was interesting that as it was happening, and I don't know why it didn't, the spells that Harry cast didn't come out of his wand too.
I know it was definitely very one-sided.
The but Voldemort's wand, all the in reverse order, all the spells that he cast started to come out
Well, it seemed like
in reverse.
just from the people he killed though.
Okay, that would make sense.
Like, it did because it didn't seem like all of the because maybe because the very last spell that Voldemort did was that Avada Kedavra before they started doing well. No, because then he just did a Crucio curse on Harry, so that wouldn't have been the last curse. It just seems like all the spirits of the people that he killed were coming out in reverse order.
Yeah, which was a nice touch.
It really was. This is also when Cedric tells Harry, "Hey, bring my body back."
Yeah, as his spirit comes out, he's like,
Mhm.
Harry, bring my body back. So okay.
And then but then it's like weird because later Dumbledore's like, no, it really wasn't their spirits. It was probably just like an echo. And I'm like, well, then why were these people talking? Why were the ghosts talking to him? Like it seems like maybe Dumbledore, like maybe this was something different that Dumbledore didn't recognize, or they didn't
Dumbledore
real.
doesn't know
He's got no clue what's going on.
that he's an old man.
Yeah,
He's
it
got
almost made me wonder if. Do you remember in the movie Suicide Squad, the second one?
I didn't watch that one.
It's not that great, but there was
The first one wasn't that great either.
yeah, not that neither one of them were. But there was a girl with a samurai sword, and everybody that she killed with that sword, their soul got trapped in the blade. So I almost wonder if they don't realize that whenever you use the killing curse on people, maybe their soul actually is stuck in the wand.
Huh. Interesting.
It's just one of those like gee whiz thoughts that I had. Because Dumbledore was like, no, it's probably just like a spirit echo, and it's not actually them. I'm like, no, they were like giving him information. That's not just an echo.
Yeah. So
So yeah,
Harry makes it out with Voldemort's just casting spells at him.
yep.
He's jumping behind.
He's spraying and praying.
Yeah, and Harry's jumping behind tombstones, grabs Cedric's body, and then he axioed the Triwizard Cup.
But he just said Accio. He didn't say like Accio Cup. He just yelled Accio.
Pointed the wand at the Triwizard Cup.
But just like I remember earlier, like he had to say like Accio Firebolt.
It was so far away.
I don't know. I think that's a mistake personally.
And I run so far away.
So he grabs the cup, summons the cup, grabs it, and boom. He is
Out.
he's back at Hogwarts with Cedric's dead body.
Yeah, and unlike the movie, he is not laying over the body going, "Get away! Get
Right.
away!"
Well, and there's not like a fanfare of music. There's like screams and all like it's definitely pandemonium as opposed to fanfare.
Yeah, and
Because
then so get this, Dumbledore Leviosas, because you see what I did there.
yeah,
Yeah, He bent down and, with extraordinary strength for a man so old and thin, raised Harry from the ground and set him on his feet.
Man's like 100 and something years old, just picked him up like nothing.
And then immediately, like, while they're asking him questions and all the spectators are like, "Oh my God, it's a dead body."
Right.
Moody comes over and says, "Harry, you you should come with me. Like, tell me what happened. You're
Right.
coming you're coming away with me." At which point he tells them all, like, starts to tell them, says, "I staged a loud conversation with Professor McGonagall about the hostages who had been taken and whether Potter would think to use gillyweed. And your little elf friend ran straight to Snape's office and then hurried to find you." So, like, he right before that, he says he gave the book Magical Water Plants of the Mediterranean to
Yep.
Neville Longbottom, hoping he would give that information to Harry, but Neville never did.
But why would he? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Why would he?
like that made more sense in the movie for Neville to drop that piece of information with this, like knowing this now. But like in the book, it made no sense. Like, why? I gave it to Neville, like so he'd tell you, but why would he tell him? Like, those, they don't hang out all the time. They're just classmates. They're not besties.
Yeah. He feels he has pity for Neville.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of Neville, we learn that I think we learned it in one of the last few chapters. I think in the Death Eaters chapter
It was
that
right after the
Neville's,
pensieve.
yeah, in the pensieve, that
Yep.
Neville's parents were subjected to the Crucio curse,
Yep.
Cruciatus curse,
Because they were Aurors.
and they are still alive,
Mhm.
but they're insane.
Yep.
And that explains why Neville had a reaction he did in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class
Yep.
when Moody was using the Cruciatus curse on the spider, which I think Hermione was the only one to notice.
Yeah, she was the only one to notice that it was bothering him, but
Discomfort.
nobody knew why.
Yeah. So nice little tie back there, you know.
It was nice to bring that back.
Let's see. Then he's going on. So the faux glass, I thought this was really cool little detail. And if you weren't picking up already that something was wrong with Moody, so, you know, Harry, let's see, there's a faux glass on the wall.
Yep.
We learned about that before.
Yeah.
It shows like your foes, if they're near, what your foes are doing.
Right.
And so there's three shapes in there, which when the door busts open, it's McGonagall, Dumbledore, and Snape.
Yep.
All in the faux glass, and they're the ones that busted in the door.
I love the description of Dumbledore. Whenever he comes through the door, like, so we're getting all of this, and it's like Harry finally understood why Dumbledore was the only wizard that Voldemort was afraid of, because he just like was exuding power and like basically like, I'm going to kill you energy. And he's like, okay, maybe Dumbledore is pretty much that guy.
Yeah. So before they bust in, though, Moody is actually, or Crouch is, telling him like, "All right, I stunned Delacour."
Yep.
As she passed, I was cursing as many obstacles out of your way. I stunned Delacour. I put the Imperious curse on Crumb, so they killed Diggory, and leave you the sole person to get to the cup.
It's another villain monologue.
It is.
We're getting a whole nother, like, he's got to tell his whole backstory. He runs through the whole thing.
I mean, he could have just taken him and escaped.
Yeah.
Because obviously he knew the plan was that Harry wasn't supposed to come back.
Right.
And now he's just sitting in the office in Hogwarts,
spilling his guts.
What else we got? So they come in. Yeah, they bust in. and Harry sees the three of them in the
Mhm.
faux glass, and it sees them come in. Like the first thing that happened is Dumbledore just stupefied
Yeah.
Crouch, and Dumbledore. I love the Dumbledore's just handing out orders like
Yep.
Severus, fetch me
And
the strongest toothbrush, strongest
truth potion.
toothbrush.
Look, you said it, not me. Truth
You heard
potion.
me say toothbrush.
I heard you say it. I was going to let you roll by it, but you went back to it.
Dumbledore said, Severus, please fetch me the strongest toothbrush.
Man, look, mate, like, they're British. They don't brush their teeth a lot.
Hey, I think this has got to be like one of the funnier episodes.
I would agree.
At
would
least to
agree.
you and me. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but
It doesn't matter really what anybody else thinks. And then go down to the kitchens and bring up Winky. Minerva, go to Hagrid's house where you'll find a large black dog sitting in a pumpkin patch.
right.
Take the dog up to my office, tell him I will be there shortly, then come back here.
And nobody questions anything. They're just like, okay.
It's like Snape's like, okay. Okay. Then Dumbledore's using all 7 keys on the things. We find a lot of interesting things in the different chests.
Yep.
Then we get all of the reveal here about Crouch.
Yep.
And what he was doing behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was reading this, I thought, I told you about Coast Con when we played the Blood on the Clock Tower game.
Uh-huh.
And like the social deduction game.
Right.
And so 2 of my friends weren't playing the game, but they were like watching. So one of them owns the game, but he hasn't run it.
Right.
Because it takes a lot to run it. And so he was watching the guy that was running it to kind of learn more.
Right.
And he was talking about it afterwards, like, yeah, it was funny watching the things go, because like it's a whole different experience when you
Right.
don't know everything versus you know everybody's role and you're
Right.
seeing what people are doing and how they're playing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought of that whenever this was happening, and how hard it must be to write 2 perspectives.
Yeah.
Because like, all right, here's this whole story you get, but now at the end, I knew all this was going on behind the scenes, and this is what was really happening,
Right.
versus what you saw. Like, it's got to take good person of writing
Mm-hmm.
to tell that story.
And then Winky, like, because then we get some of the backstory from Winky too. Like, Winky's getting mad because Crouch is sitting here spilling all the family secrets, and Winky's like, no, don't tell him, don't tell him.
Yeah, we find out what happened to Crouch and his mother.
Yep.
That his mother was dying, and so she persuaded the father to rescue him
Mm-hmm.
from jail. So they used polyjuice potions to switch places, and it tricked the Dementors, because the Dementors saw one healthy person and one sick person come
Yep.
in, and then one sick person and one healthy person leave.
Yep.
So
I feel like the Dementors get like, I feel like their abilities kind of get shifted around from book to book, because it says they really can't see, but they obviously, like, they had instructions to perform the Dementor's kiss on Sirius on, like, instantly. Like, if they saw Sirius Black, they could just go ahead and do it. But if they don't, they can't see who he is. I don't know. I feel like that's one of the ones that kind of gets shifted around. Like, oh, they're super strong, but they can't really see, but they can all at the same time. I don't.
Yeah. Here we also find out. So You remember when we were talking about right after the Quidditch World Cup that something was pulling Winky,
Yeah,
and I thought it was some kind of magic between the master and the house elf.
you were right. Just
Technically, so like
yeah,
she used her own brand of magic to
right.
bind her and Barty Crouch Jr. together,
And she was
but he
trying to
was
pull
wearing
him.
the yeah, he was wearing the invisibility cloak.
Right,
And so she was pulling him, but he was resisting. So that's why
right.
it looked like she was
Just
like
kind of
going
running.
somewhere.
Little legs just kicking like this here.
um so yeah, that how did you feel about the whole because like after finding out or after hearing Barty Crouch tell the entire
Mhm.
story of how he got everything, like how did you feel about the story being told about Moody, like Moody's story through the whole book? Because we
It
still don't know Moody.
right. We still don't know Moody. Uh, you know, like like I remember reading this book the first time. This was obviously well before the movie came out, and being like, "Holy crap!" Like to me, this was the first kind of like big reveal in in this series that I was just like did not see coming at all. Like, because even like in like the Sorcerer's Stone, kind of got the idea that it was going to be one of the teachers. Uh, and then like the Tom Riddle thing in the Chamber of Secrets, like I don't know, I felt like that was a surprise, but like to me, this was like the first like mind blowing reveal out of any of the books in the series so far. I was just like, whoa, it was really cool. Like I really, and then it kind of made a lot of it made a lot of the stuff that Moody was doing in the book make sense. Like it kind of made sense like why he transfigured, Malfoy into a ferret because he hated the Malfoy family for not going to Azkaban. I was like, okay, like a lot more of this stuff is making sense about why he did some of the things that he did. And it was like I thought it was really well done. Like I was just like, okay, well, this was good. That was really cool.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about with the big reveal here?
I don't think so.
Okay. So got 2 chapters left. The parting of the ways. Here the like Fudge is so stupid.
Yes.
And so Crouch gets killed by the Dementor right away. So Crouch can't collaborate the story to the public.
Hmm.
So
I felt
like
like
Dumbledore's like,
this was Fudge like trying to hush it up.
yes,
Like this was the ultimate cover up, is what this was. He's like, if I kill this guy, then or give him the Dementor's kiss, then he can't say anything about Voldemort. So we're just gonna hush this up.
yeah. But he's like, yeah, he was crazy. Like
Right.
one, he didn't believe Crouch that Voldemort was back.
Right.
So he's like, Crouch is Crouch is gonna like destroy my uh reign or
Right.
rule right now. Um destroy my time in office.
Uh-huh.
So I need to shut him up so he can't release this information. And then Dumbledore is like, what did you do? Like he was the
Yeah.
only one that could collaborate what we're saying and what Harry's saying, and that Voldemort's back. And Fudge's like, no, 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 no. He is crazy. You don't actually believe him, do you? He's
Well, and
like,
then he tries to
I
say that
do.
Harry's crazy. He's
Yeah.
like, you remember what you like, are we really sure we can believe Harry? And they're like, oh, you're reading Rita, huh? And he's like, eh.
So Dumbledore's like, no, you need to do this.
Yep.
Like you need to get rid of the Dementors. You need to send an envoy to the Half Giants
He just
and do
says giants.
this and or the Giants. There's probably some Half Giants in there
I'm
too,
sure
but
there is.
um,
He the
oh
only,
yeah,
and before that happens, Dumbledore makes Harry like tell the whole story again. Sirius is in the office with him, And Sirius is like, do we really need to make him do this? And Dumbledore's like, yes, he has to tell me everything from start to finish right now.
This is where he also revealed that Sirius was the dog to Snape as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. And so, like, it was interesting. It's about the Dementors that they would not stay supporting of the Ministry of Magic.
Yep.
Once Voldemort's like, hey, I can give you this. I can
Yeah.
give you everything. You want bodies to steal from? You want souls to suck?
Well,
I'll
that
give
was
you-
all in Voldemort's monologue. He's like, we're gonna get the. He's like, we're going to get the Dementors back. We're going to get the Giants back. He's
Mhm.
like, he's laying out his whole plan.
Yeah, which
And of
should have
course,
destroyed
Crouch
him.
knew
But,
all this.
yeah, it should have destroyed him, but the minister of magic's like, I don't believe any of that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then they give
oh,
go ahead.
Dumbledore. At the end of it, the last thing I was going to say is Dumbledore decided to enact his plan that he told Fudge to do.
Yeah.
That Fudge refuses. So,
Yep.
and Snape knows that Sirius is an animagus now. And then they shook hands. Like Dumbledore's like, look, y'all are on the same side. Deal with each other.
That was probably the quickest, most tense handshake in Wizard history. Because they were just like, like, that's it.
It's like, all right.
Yeah, fine.
Anything else before we get to the final chapter?
No, no, I don't think so.
So Harry gives the money to Amos Diggory.
Tries to.
The what?
He tries to give him the money. They don't accept it.
Yeah. Yes. Let's see. Amos is the mother?
No, Amos is the dad.
Where's the he
Because
tries to give the money to Mrs. Diggory.
Right. And she insists that he keep it.
Yeah. And so let's see. Then Dumbledore decides to tell the entire school that Cedric Diggory was murdered by Voldemort, because now he's like, the more people I can tell, the better it is for us.
Right.
The more people that start to believe that Voldemort is still alive and that he killed a student, then the better chance we have of getting ahead on this.
Yeah, he's like, he's like, the minister doesn't want me to tell you, but here it is.
And so he gives a nice pep speech.
This is like the most depressing pep talk ever.
Remember, Cedric, remember, if the time should come when you have to make a choice between what is right and what is easy, remember what happened to a boy who was good and kind and brave because he strayed across the path of Lord Voldemort. Remember Cedric Diggory.
And none of the Slytherins were happy.
Crumb. At the end, Ron was just like, "Can I have your autograph?" Signature, but hey, can I have your autograph?
Yeah, he's like, he couldn't help it. He's like, be cool, be cool, be cool, be cool.
Like,
can I have your autograph?
No, don't be a fanboy. Don't be a fanboy. Don't be a fanboy. Oh my God, you're so amazing. Please sign this
You're
paper.
the greatest.
I've been with you this entire school year, but I hated you for most of the time, but I also really fucking love you.
And now we find out about the whole bugging situation. Also,
We do. This is that.
It's the other big reveal.
Well, besides the confirmation that Bagman is a gambler.
Bagman is a gambler. Yes, we that was confirmed.
So My question, and we'll get back to Rita real quick. My question is, did you truly not remember that he was gambling, or did you?
I like I like kind of remembered it. Like I thought that may have been what the angle was, but I remember reading it through the first time, and I was like he wouldn't care if he didn't have something writing on it.
Yeah.
Like there was no reason for him to be that vested unless he had something writing on it. But I love how the goblins were like, "Nope, Harry didn't win. Him and Cedric tied, so you owe us everything. You won nothing."
That was great.
That was great.
So, yeah, Hermione captures Rita Skeeter
As a beetle.
as a beetle in a glass jar
Mm-hmm.
that she put a charm on it.
An unbreakable charm.
Yeah, the unbreakable on the glass, so she couldn't just enlarge herself, return herself to a human, and break the glass. Yep. She's like, "You are an unregistered animagus," which she chose a very apt animal
She did.
to turn into.
And like that was great too, because then like it ties into all the other times where, because you're like, why else would you make a point to say there was a beetle here, there was a beetle there, and then to finally tie it back in, I was like, that was good.
I'm trying to remember. There's a book or a TV show, and I can't remember what it is, but there's stories of as a young boy, this character sat there and like tortured beetles. And I can't remember
No
what it
idea what you're
was.
talking about. But one of my favorite things in this book happens right after the whole Rita Skeeter and the unbreakable charm and the thing. So
Mhm.
we're writing back, and the all of a sudden Malfoy and crew like barge in like, oh, you think you're so smart, you figured out how Rita was getting the information, and he's like, yeah, the Dark Lord's back, blah blah blah, and like everybody cursed him all at once. Like there were like Hermione, Harry, Ron, the Weasley twins, like everybody's throwing curses at these guys all at once. And I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to see if I could look it up. Somebody did have a thing. Oh, it was from A Song of Ice and Fire, I think. Yeah.
Huh.
It was one of the things.
I don't remember that. Of course, it's been a long time since I've read that series.
Yeah. I can't remember the I think it was one of the Lannisters. One of the dumb Lannisters. Yeah, maybe it was Tyrion or
Oh.
oh no, it was Tyrion was telling a story about one of their cousin Lannisters who was dumb, and he
Uh-huh.
would sit there and torture
Torture
beetles.
Beetles.
Yeah.
It's been a
So
very long time since I've read that series.
I've read it twice. And I actually had there was somebody put together an Excel spreadsheet
Uh-huh.
that had the last two books, the chapters, or like read these chapters and then these chapters, because those two books, they are split, and
Yeah.
so a lot of the events happening at the same time.
Yep.
And so the second time I read the series, I followed that and went from these chapters in
Right.
Feast for
You
Crows, and then
jumped.
these from the Dance of Dragons, and I was like,
Yep.
oh, okay, this makes sense. But I don't get caught up in that. Like for some reason, people are like, I don't know why,
Right.
but a lot of people like when that kind of stuff happens,
Uh-huh.
they get super confused,
Right.
and I'm just like, I don't know if I just compartmentalize the different plot lines that are going on and just go,
Uh-huh.
okay, this is like, and then just accept like, okay, I've broken this off, and this is
Uh-huh.
what's happening in this section.
Yeah.
unless there's a
I kind of like that whenever you read the next book and it has like throwbacks to the previous book. I kind of like that because you're like, oh, well, now that makes that other thing make much more sense because now I know this was going on.
yeah, even, and sometimes I do get confused. Like, so the Song of Ice and Fire, and I know we're almost done with. There might be a couple things to. I think the last thing. So I think the last thing I wanted to mention about the end of this book is that Harry ends up giving the winnings to Fred and George,
Yep.
and I think that was the last thing that I had.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree with you there. That's to me like so Harry gives them the money and because they admit that or they give the whole breakdown of what happened to Ludo Bagman and the whole gambling and whatnot. And I I will say the last thing I'll say about this book since we're finished since it's done is this is the first book in the whole series that doesn't end on like a high note. Like it ends kind of ominous. Like you know something wicked this way comes. Like you know the next
mhm.
book is not going to start off all happy and bright and smiling with something kind of fun. You know the next thing that's coming is not good.
Right. And one last thing about the book, I did like that Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle got hit by three different charms or hexes at the same
At the
time.
same time, that was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful.
Just all right, Harry Potter's done.
Harry Potter's done, so you can
Awesome.
continue your story about the Song of Ice and Fire.
Book 4 of Harry Potter's done. So with Song of Ice and Fire, and this isn't. I don't think we've spoiled anything with that series. I don't think we talked about any details. So
I get that book. That book's been out for a long time now, so it's
true. But one of the things that I got confused on when I was first reading it is the different point of views and how certain people like hear rumors.
yeah,
And so when somebody would hear a rumor, I'm like, well, when did that happen? Because I totally missed like I wasn't thinking, oh, it's a rumor. It's being information or story is being given to a person as if it's fact.
right.
And so when I read it, I took it as that, like
Uh-huh.
as the author is telling me, hey, this happened.
Right.
And I'm like, when did that happen? That didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or when characters are different characters are referring to other characters by different names.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wait, who is this person? And why does that event sound so similar to this other person that's
Uh-huh.
doing this?
Because I
And
call them by their
so,
nickname or by whatever.
right. And like, there's a certain character that betrays some people.
Yeah.
I think you know who I'm talking about. Takes a new name.
Yeah.
Um, and I was highly confused when that happened.
What?
I was like, oh, new character. And then later on, somebody was talking about, oh, that's not a new character.
Yeah. Same guy.
I was like, holy shit, that's totally a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a different person. So, but yeah, that kind of stuff confuses me a little bit. But I like to read, and the more I read, the less I am confused about those things because
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it has to deal with just now that George R. R. Martin has done that, and I don't know if
Right.
he was the first to do that. Authors after that are going to go, oh, that's a cool way. That's a cool narrative
Mm-hmm.
device or vessel,
Yeah.
and like take that and run with it.
Yep.
I think somebody mentioned something before, like a lot of the fantasy movies that came out before are like, oh my God, this is cool. But then when they make movies of some of the older books
Right.
that actually inspired the books that the earlier movies were made off of,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't hit the same because everybody's like, yeah, this one's been, I think John Carter of Mars is an example that people use.
Right.
That came out, people are like, there's nothing new about this. Like
Right.
these movies did this, and it's like, yeah, those movies did that because the books did that because they took from the book of this movie.
Yeah. Like that movie was actually way better than people give it credit for.
I never actually watched it.
It's not a bad movie. Like it is one of those things like you watch and you're like, this has been done. But at the same time, it's like, but it was before its time because everything else kind of copied off of it. So if it had come out 5 years sooner, it would have been like everybody would have loved it.
Yeah, the books copied it,
Right.
and then those books got made into a movie first, and then
Yep.
it got made into a movie. So people blaming it for copying the movie that the book. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm tracking. It's all circular. Yep.
Rebel Moon 2 is coming out in April.
I'll still watch it. I wasn't a
I'll
huge
watch it
fan of
too.
the first one, but I will watch it because I got to see how it ends. So
Fallout TV series is coming out too,
I
and that
heard
trailer looked amazing.
it did. Beetlejuice 2 is coming out also. Pretty excited about that.
I'm okay about it.
I liked Beetlejuice a lot. I still go back and watch the original Beetlejuice from time to time.
Yeah, I didn't watch that as a kid. I watched
I
that
did.
as an adult recently, but um, also House of Dragons season 2 trailers came out.
Yep. They had
The
2 different trailers.
2 different trailers. Yeah. And you like how they spin it too?
Yeah. It's
And
from each point of view. I think it's
each point of view, and I'm like, they do that with the news these days.
well, that's exactly what it's a play on. I mean, think about it. It's an election year. You have 2 different points of view. So now you've got House of Dragons season 2 coming out, and you've got it from 2 different points of view. I mean, to me, it's brilliant. It's brilliant marketing.
Oh yeah. That I never read the Fire and Blood book,
I didn't either.
but that TV show is pretty good.
I'm enjoying it. Of course, you know, I liked, the Game of Thrones for the most part, but because once I accepted that the show was going so far off of the book, I was just like, I'm just going to watch for entertainment value, and that's about it. So I haven't read the book that get the House or the House
House
of the
of Dragon.
Dragon, yeah, House of Dragons based on, and I don't know if I'm going to. So I'll have to wait and see if I read it or not. As of right now, it's not on my radar.
Yeah, I started reading I'm about halfway through it, the Mistborn Era 2,
Okay.
which is by Brandon Sanderson. So the first book is called The Alloy of Law,
Hmm.
and it's like a Gilded Age type era.
Okay.
So it's like 300 years after the first Mistborn trilogy.
Okay.
So like his idea was, and he plans to have a future era as well, but he wanted to have a world where it changed,
Mhm.
but like the magic in it, like you got to see a world evolve, like in
Gotcha.
in a fantasy world. And he's like, I've never seen that before, but I thought the idea was great.
That is kind of cool.
And so like I don't think it's as good overall as the original trilogy of the Mistborn series,
Hmm.
the first era, but it's fun because
Yeah.
like almost like it's the end of the Wild Wild West.
Right.
So you get magic and you get guns and trains.
Nice. And we know you like trains.
Who doesn't like trains and horseless carriages?
This is great.
So
That's great.
so you've got some big news.
I have some big news. This is my final episode with the Paperweights. Very sad. I've enjoyed doing this podcast with you. I have some things going on, and I need to get my life together a little bit. And you and I have discussed this a couple weeks ago, and we both agreed that it would be the best thing to do for me to do would be just to step away and not continue on with the show. But the show will go on,
The show will go on.
and you already have a couple of more people lined up to continue not only this series but also the future series.
I do. We are going to continue our plan that you and I talked about at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to finish the Harry Potter series.
Yep.
And I've got 3 of my friends that are going to fill in. 2 of them have been on the podcast before. So I've got Mike that's going to continue with book 5.
Nice.
And then my other friend Mike is going to come in on book 6. And
And then
then
your other friend Mike's going to come in.
my other friend Mike is coming in on book 7. And then we're going to go back to my other friend Mike, who's going to continue to do the Stormlight Archive series with me.
Nice.
So,
That's awesome.
Yes. If you ever bring up why Mike looks different, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's the same guy. These pictures are the same.
Yes, it's the same thing. So, but no, in all seriousness, we've got Justin coming on. He's going to do book 5, and he's the one that's going to do the Stormlight Archives with me.
Nice.
My friend Chris is going to tackle book 6 because I think he said that's his second favorite book.
Okay.
And then my friend Alex, his wife, who is a huge Potterhead, is going to do book 7.
Nice.
And then Justin's coming back for Stormlight Archives.
Right on.
So
it does make me happy that you were able to find people just to jump in and continue this on, because I think this podcast is great, and I think it's needed because people need to know that you can do more than one thing, you can be into more than one thing, and you can have multiple different interests, and reading is cool, and that message needs to continue getting spread. So I'm glad you had people willing to step in and help you continue to spread that message and keep reading good books. So
yes, absolutely. And hey, I appreciate you doing this. Like, I remember the day I texted you about this crazy idea I had,
right.
and you were like, "Oh yeah, oh we could do this book first."
Yep.
Because you sent me the entire series, and I was just like, at first I went, "Well, that's not what I was suggesting as the first book," but okay.
But it worked.
It did work.
It did work. It worked really well.
And then moving into others, I mean, I read several books that I hadn't read before.
I read a lot that I'd never read before. I mean, look, I still tell people about Conquest Born. Like that book to me is still kind of mind blowing. Like it's probably, honestly, that's probably been one of my favorite books that we've read so far, was in Conquest Born, just because it was so deep, so layered, and like so unexpected the way things worked out, that it's still one of my favorite books we've read.
And I will say, I mean, I already gave you so many books that you do need to read, and I hope you do read the Stormlight Archives with us and kind of go, hey, I'm expecting some text messages every now and then.
Whenever text me whenever y'all are going to start that series, and I will start that series as well.
I think I laid everything out for the year.
Okay.
And so we'll be finishing up book 5 of that in February of next year.
Okay.
Because those things are massive, dude. Like, hold on. Like,
oh wow. That's a big old honking chonker book.
This is the second book, and it's thicker than the 4th book, but for some reason the 4th book has more pages.
Interesting.
So I forgot. Oh, yeah. So each of these books they're divided into 5 parts.
Okay.
So we're gonna do one part at a time.
Nice.
We're not gonna. I think we're not gonna do a chapter by chapter. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna take different storylines, and so we're gonna talk about the storyline of certain characters at a time.
Gotcha. That'd be cool.
So yeah, just to kind of change it up, so we're not just going chapter by chapter of a book, and because
Right.
like, I mean, how many this book too has over 85 chapters.
That's a lot.
So, but yeah, I am excited. Um, I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. Two Louisiana boys that still have never met in person.
We will fix that. We will eventually fix this.
Yes, we will. We will fix this, and um, you know, maybe one day you'll be like, "Hey, let's read this book," and then we record another episode where you're a guest.
Maybe. You never know. Maybe I'll come chime in on the Stormlight Archives for an episode. But we will
Yeah.
see. So I've been saving this for when I was going to share it whenever we start the next book.
Cheers.
I'll have to cheers with this because my other one's empty. Cheers. So to tell you how big of a nerd I truly am, when book 5 of the Harry Potter series came out, a friend of mine was working at. You remember Sam Goody?
Mm-hmm.
So a friend of mine was a manager at Sam Goody, and he got cleared to do a midnight release of book 5 of Harry Potter. Because book 5 is Half Blood Prince, right?
No, book 6 is
Okay, so it was book 6. So he
book
actually
5
did
is Order of the Phoenix.
Okay, so Order of the Phoenix. So he actually did he did book 5 and book 6. So I went to a midnight release party for 2 different books 2 years in a row.
I did that too.
So we're
But
both
I wasn't reading the
degenerates.
books back then either. I
No,
went with a
was.
friend.
Oh, I was reading the books, so I drug my wife with me. Like she wasn't my wife yet. Or was she? Maybe we were married? We may have been married by then. When did this book come out? This one was in 2000. We may have just been dating. I don't remember. But I drug her with me. But anyway, so yes, I look forward to hearing y'all discuss book 5. I will still be listening to the podcast, so I look forward to hearing that. But I'm hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so I'm gonna go eat.
Gotcha. So next week, all right. Next week, Jules and I are going on our father-daughter trip.
Right.
And her and I are going to record another episode. So that's
Nice.
going to be the next episode that comes out. I don't know the topic of that. And then the week after, Justin and I will begin the first. Let me get the chapters here. Hold on. The first episode for Order of the Phoenix, which will cover chapters 1 through 11.
Chapters 1 through 11 of the Order of Phoenix.
Yeah. So anybody following along, chapters 1 through 11, 2 weeks from now, Order of the Phoenix. And then we've got that divided into 4 episodes.
Makes sense because that's a longer book.
That is a big book.
That's a long book. That is a long one. Well,
all right,
so
Mike.
you have a fantastic evening.
You too,
again,
sir.
This was
have some good food.
This was a phenomenal journey that we have been on for the last has it been over a year or right at a year?
About 10.
I know
months, 10 and a half months.
I know we started whenever I was still in Georgia, because then we recorded a couple episodes while I was living in the camper. So
So we recorded long before we released one. So May 19th, I think, was our first release episode.
Okay.
So recording wise, we've been recording for over a year.
Right on. So that's a pretty good stint, sir.
This is episode 45. Nice, good round number to leave on. Sir.
Nice, good round number. So to all the listeners, thank you very much for supporting both of us. I hope you continue to support Brandon and Justin and everybody else that's going to be guest coming next, and keep reading books and keep being awesome. So you, sir, have a great evening, and I will chat with you later.
Yes, sir. Bye.
All right, bye.